Bonjour, and welcome to all you comic book geeks, readers, and collectors. What category does this fall into? I don't know. It's back issues, but not a back issue haul. But I was rummaging around. I'll tell you what started me off. This a couple of weeks ago, and I've always been a big fan of this character. Maybe even more so than Conan. Even though I got the whole run of that from the Barry Windsor Smith days, and I still get it now, and etc. etc. And I know Conan is of more public awareness, basically. So perhaps because Elric isn't, there's a little bit of me that I like being unique. Shut up. You're not. What is it? You're not different. You're just special. That's the one, isn't it? In Elf. Anyway, so. Obviously, they've got quite a prolific, on the back, look at the back of this comic, look, he's got quite a prolific history, Elric. If you do not know, he must have started late 60s. Obviously, he's more modern. He's a more modern creation by Michael Moorcock than Robert E. Howard's Conan, which was back in the 20s, I believe. And I'm not a big literary buff, so please forgive me if I'm getting any of these times and dates wrong. At least I know his name, Michael Moorcock, and it's Elric. I don't know the order off by heart that the books come in. The same way as Conan. I know he started in the pulps and he ended up in the comics, and I've read a few of his books. What happened was, in 1980, at the tender age of 13, this portfolio of artwork by Frank Brunner was my combined birthday and Christmas present at the tender age of 13. I can't tell you what it costs in England. So this portfolio, and I'd never bought an art portfolio before. I wasn't a collector. Here we go, limited to 1,000 copies. Each is hand signed and numbered. Now, obviously, this has been with me since moving out of my mum and dad's, and so there is staining on it. And look, you can see it's not anything that I could really frame. But look at this beauty. This is what got me into Elric. This one illustration right here. And it has been used over the years, I've noticed. It's I wouldn't say it's the most famous illustration of Elric, but Frank Brunner's art, I mean, I hadn't even, like I say, at the age of 13, what I did want to be, though, was an artist, a comic book artist, and I must have seen this at an appropriate time, and I just wanted, this is what started, this is before Lord of the Rings. I mean, this is reminding me of Lord of the Rings. That's why I mention it. But this is Elric. Before I've been introduced to Stormbringer, I was just really into Frank, and still am. I still consider him a great artist, Frank Brunner's artwork. So this is where it began. Doesn't say if it's based on what books or whatever. Anyway, the final image from the portfolio. There we go. So what happens 3 years later? Pacific Comics, 1983. This comes out. And obviously I'm getting into my, I was literally of the age 15, 16, 17 in that early 80s period where comics, and particularly independent comics, were blowing up. You had the companies like Pacific, even Marvel was did an Epic line, and then you had First Comics. There was tons. A big boom. And yeah, I fell in love with P. Craig Russell's artwork. And for me, he summed it up. He summed up Elric for me. He via Roy Thomas's writing, who, by the way, your connection between Conan and Elric, there aren't many connections apart from their fantasy characters, really. Those two worlds of these two characters couldn't be more separate. But Roy Thomas who had written such a wonderful run of Conan, started doing such a wonderful adaptation. And here we go, Stormbringer, and Elric's relationship with the sword is what makes it, as well as the decadent world that he lives in. I can't, like I say, I'm not a literary reviewer, but for me, it was different from so much different from Conan. This was a it was a decadent world, and he wasn't really a hero. If at best you can call him a reluctant hero, it's only because you're following his story. You know, sometimes, and in later, because I've read the books as well, but obviously, like I say, I'm not going to go there. It was just these. So that was 1983. Two years later, this is just my little journey with Elric. Roy Thomas is adapting. Yeah, Roy Thomas. But Michael T. Gilbert is the artist that follows up P. Craig Russell, and he was a worthy successor, I must say. You can, he did bring that artistic flourish that the cities needed. That where Conan you can get away with certain stuff, and I know I keep using that as an example, but I shouldn't really. But yeah, then this is where I fell in love with Michael T. Gilbert's artwork. He went on to do Mr. Monster, if anyone remembers that back in the day. Let me know in the comments if any of you remember that, because I've still got it down here in my favourite artists book boxes, alongside P. Craig Russell, who's Michael T. Gilbert, and Mr. Monster, and what a weirdo thing that was. But anyway, back to Elric. Sorry, I've got to digress. This wonderful stuff. So it went from, by the way, when it went over to First Comics because Pacific Comics that done the first series folded. No, they didn't earn didn't earn any money at all. A year later, another adaptation. Michael T. Gilbert again, but wonderful stuff. Weird of the White Wolf. Obviously adapted one of the book. These are all adaptations of the books, by the way, at the moment. So, just love this artwork. Just love. Couldn't. This is pure Michael T. Gilbert. Illustrations like that. Absolutely lapped up this stuff. Then it kind of, from there, a year later, it kind of, you got Jen Dursimo. I mean, Roy Thomas is still writing it, so there's still great stories. The Vanishing Tower, so it's still another adaptation. That's a wonderful. Is it P. Craig? Whoever done that is either copying P. Craig Russell or Michael T. Gilbert, or he's one of them. Love it, but yes, but it didn't have the flourish. Jan Dursima is a good comic artist, but just didn't have the flourish really for me, the stylistic flourish that P. Craig Russell or Michael T. Gilbert. I don't know why both of those artists used their middle name initial. And yeah, that's the last issue of that run. Right, First have still got the license in 1988, so they're putting out a year. The Bane of the Black Sword. They're putting out. Mark Pacella is the artist on that, and I've got to say, it was only the comic book geek collector in me that would have kept this up. I can remember. I can't really remember this being much of a. We're kind of in quality since the first issue. We are kind of going down a bit in quality. So the covers are quite nice though, in design. Then the Wilderness Years. So 10 years later, in 1997, P. Craig Russell was back with this was the one for me. So Topps Comics have obviously got the license now, and this was all P. Craig Russell. So Roy Thomas isn't writing it. He is, and look at these and every cover is a different. Gets the logo, the name of Elric into a different, and it was just wonderful. This was peak. This was peak P. Craig Russell for me on Elric. And because it was him adapted, look at these wonderful illustrations on the back as well. Normally I moan, don't I? But I'm gonna allow it. I'm gonna allow it because it's actually, that was the same as issue 1, but I'll show you it. I'm gonna allow it because it's P. Craig Russell. Look at these beautiful covers, perfectly illustrating the kind of, what is it, like a decadent insanity that Elric has. A kind of arrogant, an epic melancholy. Where am I coming up with all this stuff? Anyway, I hope it makes you want to read it. But in the meanwhile, back to the comics. It was just, this kind of stuff blows me away when you've got an artist working on the design and the flourishes needed to bring these characters to life. So that was that, and then a couple of and then a few more years later, this was so that was that was 97, I think. So then another 10 years. So there's 10-year break between the first initial flourish, then another 10, and then another 10 years. But what they did here through DC, Michael Moorcock has written like a prequel, releasing it, because Michael Moorcock used to write comics back in the day and that as well, and for the Pulp magazine, stuff like that. So he's not averse to doing it, and I love him for that. But he's with Walter Simonson riding high after, several different things. A four-issue prestige format miniseries, which was different because it's from the original author and it's new material released here first. So it's glorious, yeah. And you can see like Walter Simonson's run on Thor didn't do him no harm, did it? That was a great run. But yeah, what a great matching of writer and artist after that run of Thor. That was your CV really, to do it. So that's been my journey for Elric, and I can't understand. I don't know what it is about the character. I think it's because he is so dark. I mean, I know we do dark and brooding in our fantasy characters and that, but Elric is something different. Forget Conan, forget Lord of the Rings. Obviously, there's elements of it. There's swords in it, and there's dragons in it, and etc. etc. Forget Game of Thrones. There is such a intense brooding darkness over our main character. Anti-hero. You read some Elric, and I remember one of the books, the torment between him and the sword. I think it's as we get to the end of it, of his story, if you know what I mean, and where the stories all end up, and how Michael Moorcock rounds it all off, which is why he done a prequel. Most recent thing he's done, I believe. But let me know in the comments if you're in, if you want to get into it. It's because it was a proper ending. And I'll leave it at that, just in case you do want to get into the books. Now, it's pointless me telling you now. Just of quirky interest is the add-on characters. Michael Moorcock's, there we go, Hulk Moon. These weren't great. There's a couple of covers worthy of note. There's a Michael Chronicles of Corum there. These are characters from Elric, but there's a nice Magnolia cover there. Oh, actually, he did all. It looks like he did all of the covers. Yeah, and this was first comic, so this would have been late 80s. Here's some nice Magnolia covers in reverse order, by the way. But they weren't the best. But I I do like this cover. I do like his depiction of Elric there. I don't think that's quorum. It could be, couldn't it? Because Elric doesn't have a hand like that. Anyway, nice Mignola artwork. Nevertheless, that's pure Mignola, that is. So some early Mignola artwork. So there was just 3 kind of on the side. I don't know if they were books or not, but like I say, I know I keep saying I am not a literary chronicler. So I hope you've enjoyed that, my little personal journey through, my love of Elric, basically. And if you've stood with me this far, sat with me this far, listened to me this far, thank you so much. If you're one of my sexy subscribers, you know how much I love you guys. You know how much. If you're commenting, I'm getting a little gang together. Getting a little gang of you all together now, commenting on my videos. So love you all as well. And until next time, I'll bid you all adios.